Welcome to Monster.com's first video tutorial. I'm going to take this time to briefly introduce myself. My name is Felix, admin of Monster.com. I graduated from Orlando Tech's 3D animation and game design program. While I was attending there, I found most of my knowledge came from asking questions and tutorials. Tutorials are what I'm attempting to recreate, and when I was first starting the program, I found myself looking for tutorials on everything I did. For example, if I needed to model a cup, I'd look for a cup modeling tutorial. My cup needed a straw, I'd look for a straw modeling tutorial. Now, what would happen if, per se, I wanted to model my phone, which is a HTC Hero? I'd find myself very hard pressed to locate a tutorial on how to model my phone. My point being is that these tutorials, I'm going to pack as much information as I can into here, but ultimately, it's up to you to grab this information and make use of it. Let's get started here in Cinema 4D. I'm using version 11 and it's 64-bit because I have a 64-bit operating system. Highly recommend it if you have a 64-bit operating system as well. Cinema 4D at a glance, you have a bunch of sections and cutoffs. Starting here, you have your objects, and anytime you import something into your viewport, which is what this little box here is called, they go into the object. Every object has its attributes, and attributes can be either how many polygons are on a side, what's the keyframe that you want to animate a certain attribute of an object. All that goes under there. Coordinates are the exact location or exact measurement in relation to infinity. Materials are your coloring or texture for the objects that you have on a scene. And here we have all our tools that will assist in modeling. This, starting from the top, would move your object or scale it. This here will affect the object's axis. Every object that you bring into the scene has an axis, and you want to be careful when dealing with the axis. Sometimes when you're modeling, your axis might be off center, and when we get into modeling, I'll actually teach you how to fix that. Here we have our points, vertices, and surfaces. These two are our texture tools, and we'll get into texturing in another segment. These are our layouts here, beautifully scripted by Maxon. Good job here. Essentially, if I wanted to animate, it would change my entire layout to animation. Here's my time frame that I can scrub through very easily. Keys, all at the click of a mouse. I, for all intents and purposes, will be working in standard most of the time. Okay. Up here we have more tools, just like these are called tools. These as well are tools. We have our live selection, click and hold to get more options, rectangular selection, and so on. Our move tool, scale tool, rotate tool. These are our recent tools that we've been through. So since I've clicked on all those in that order, it remembered in that order. And I have memory for 4 more. These here are X, Y, Z. These are the directions of our 3D space. When we're scaling or moving things uniformly using the use model tool, we can go ahead and tick off Y if we just want the scaling to affect X and Z at the same time. If we want to use the object itself as a point of reference versus the world, we can do that with this box. This here are our render settings. That's an entire section on its own. These are primitive. Now you'll see in these boxes they have a little black arrow on the bottom right on some of them. That means that there's more options. So click and hold and that'll give it a little fly out. Now in this fly out, these are other primitives. Very cool. These are our splines. Splines, they have use in animation to modeling and anywhere in between, really. They're mathematically based like anything else in 3D, but these are what we refer to as vector. Hypernerbs, these are all our NURBs here. These sometimes work with splines, they sometimes work with polygonal objects. This is called the modeling menu. That's not to get confused with the modeling process that we'll be going through. However, this may sometimes assist in it. These are our scene objects, such as light, cameras, a floor, and background, which is my main four that I use. Deformers as well. These will take a polygonal object and bend it, explode it, shatter it. I mean, any quick effects that you need to wow or deform go into your deformers. And emitters. Emitters are really cool and can be often frustrating at times when you're working with settings and just trying to get the perfect effect. These are our help buttons, and this is the content browser. The content browser is very useful for myself and probably for you too. The content browser contains presets. Now this can mean preset materials, this can mean preset models. All of that is included with your installation of Cinema 4D, and that's under the Cinema 4D folder. You have materials, light setups, and some humans. Very cool. Now, we covered the bottom. Up to the top, file, as you have in many programs. This will be your to create a new document, open, and export. Those are the main uses right here. The only thing that's missing, obviously, is the print. Where's print? Well, we get print when we render a picture out, and that'd be this little doohickey here. Moving down, our edit, nothing too fantastic, but I do want to bring something to your attention under preferences. I am English US, as they say, so my units will be in inches. Now, Cinema 4D by default, because it was made in Germany, they come in meters. I use inches, so not to trip over your feet, but definitely keep an eye out for that. Here we have our tools. Tools, they range. We covered some, like the move, scale, and our tools on the left bar. We have them here as well. Selection, that was what we covered as well. If I scoot this bar to the left, you'll see the selections there. Our structure, we would actually need a polygonal object on the scene. A polygonal object comes from a primitive. So I'm going to drop a primitive cube, make it editable over here, and that essentially turns it into a polygonal object. The icon changed on it, and the name changed on it. And now under structure, oh, we have to click on surfaces first, get a little bit deeper. We have more options lit up. Now, some of them aren't. That may mean that under surfaces in particular, they may not light up. You would have to go to points or splines, or vertices rather. Functions, these are anything in between modeling and animating. You want to keep these in mind. I'll flip through them here and there, but not so much. One thing that you do need to pay attention to is your normals. When you're creating polygons on a model, you want to make sure your normals are just that, normal. If you have inside out normals on your polygon surfaces, that'll make it difficult for texturing later. Your animation, pretty simple. Cinema 4D uses keyframes for all their animation. So again, I told you that the use model tool would move the model across the screen, and live select can also move, as well as the move tool. So those often get interchanged. Now for animation, you can do it as simple as setting it to 0, the timeline to 0, keyframing it, changing to a different part in time, moving the object in either direction, and setting another keyframe, and you'll see an animation spline up here. So scrubbing to the back and pressing it forward would move it to that location. And just like that, we have animation in Cinema 4D. The next couple of drop-down menus are optional in Cinema 4D. Now these are normally purchased through Cinema 4D or included in your purchase of Cinema 4D. Review your receipt to see what you actually paid for. Character, you have deformers and all types of rigging tools. Dynamics, Cinema 4D dynamics aren't the most realistic, but they're definitely compelling and they have some wow factor behind them. MoGraph is great for visual effects, and hair can be used for just for that, and as well as grass. And of course you have your render options here. Plugins, I generally leave these alone because of the main fact that I'm trying to teach Cinema 4D and not a plugin. Window, the most important thing to know from here is your layout, which is also over here. Now if you so happen to mess up your layout and screw it up, for example doing one of these numbers here and taking out your objects, all you have is structure, you would go to Window, Layout, and then just reset your layout. And that'll bring it back. Objects as were intended in standard. That pretty much concludes Cinema 4D's interface and this tutorial. If you have any questions, go to the contact me and drop in your information and fire away. Have a good night, Monster.com.